The scary thing, I think, especially for our aging parents, is that the scams are getting more and more intricate and clever, and
Mhm.
it's hard to tell when they're really a scam.
Absolutely. So we are bringing in Heather Massey from the Better Business Bureau to kind of go over some of the most common scams, the ones that we can warn our parents about and be able to kind of be on the lookout for ourselves. So thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with what you are seeing as kind of the newest and maybe the new trends that we're seeing.
Well, the impersonation scams, we want to say these are new, but they're not. They've been around. They change.
Mhm.
We all know the IRS scam, or you get the call and you owe back taxes and they're threatening to put you in jail, and it's very scary. So we
Mhm.
urge people, just don't panic when you receive calls like this, or even caller IDs that show maybe it's a government agency calling you. Unfortunately, you can't trust who's on the other end of that line. So
Yeah.
we just urge people to be patient.
To me, the hardest thing there is that, like take my dad for instance. I think that if he got a call and somebody said, "I'm with the IRS, you owe us thousands of dollars," he would laugh and hang up on him. But if someone called him today and said, "I'm with your wife and she needs X and Y and Z, and it's
Mhm.
going to cost a couple $1,000s. Can I get your credit card?" I'm afraid my dad would say, "Oh yeah, anything for her. Here
Mhm.
you go." So what can we do to help our parents see that you need to take that extra step of precaution?
Yeah, just don't panic. If you need to pay $2,000, you don't have to pay it right then. You can still pay it in 30 minutes or 2 or 3 days later.
Yeah.
So that sense of urgency and panic is really how they get people to hand over their personal and financial information. So it's encouraging to tell them to stop, take a pause, ask questions, and actually call the agency back directly and find out if this is exactly what they need from you or if it is a scam.
So tips for them would be don't take the information from them, as far as like don't take a phone number if they say, hey, well, I want to call back and call the IRS. Don't get the number from them. Find it from the website or from another source, right?
Yes, correct. You can go simply into your favorite search engine, or if you're unsure, about what agency to call, and they say whatever an agency they're trying to impersonate, you can always reach out to your friends and family. Ask them questions. Say, "Hey, man, I received this phone call. I'm really unsure," and let them walk you through it. A
Mhm.
lot of us get embarrassed. We don't want to ask for help, but there is nothing wrong in asking for help and verifying that information. It'll definitely protect you in the long run.
So, in addition to the IRS or some other government entity, I've also heard of cases where somebody will say, "Hey, this is the jail, and your grandson is in jail." And so that's another one that I've heard some about. And just because of the prevalence now of artificial intelligence, how is that coming into play as far as actually being able to impersonate maybe your loved one's voice? Is that becoming an issue?
It is. And this scam has been around for quite a while, but it's getting very sophisticated.
Mhm.
Previously, when scammers would call and they would say, "Hey, I've got your grandson, he's in jail." This is an actual story that did happen to someone I spoke with. And the person didn't have their hearing aid in. So they were a little bit, it sounds like him. They weren't for sure. He
Mhm.
actually knew what to call him, if it was Mimi or grandmother, and went into this
Mhm.
big long spill. So it was a little confusing.
Mhm.
However, the person on the other end of the line hung up, actually reached out to their son to verify. And he was like, "Hey, mom, he's right here on the couch with me. He's not
Right.
in jail in Las Vegas. Everything is good."
Yeah.
But with
Yeah.
the new artificial intelligence, the voice recognition is almost spot on. So
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
really have to rely on your instincts and don't panic. Take
Mhm.
time, hang up the phone, and reach out to the individual in question.
Would it
Yeah.
be a good rule of thumb that you should never give out personal information when somebody calls you? It's different when you call the credit card company using the number on the back of the card and they want to verify information. But would that be a good rule of thumb? Is that if somebody's calling you and asking you for account numbers, social security, driver's license, anything like that, basically they're calling you, is that a huge red flag?
That is a huge red flag, because someone on the other end of the line that is calling you about something specific, let's say it's your credit card company, your mortgage company, they don't need that information. They already have it. If they're
Mhm.
legitimate, they have your sensitive information in order to obtain that loan or personal financial, security. So you definitely want to take a pause, and you cannot trust anyone that calls based on caller ID. It's
Right.
just unfortunate that you have to take that pause and really take a look at it. So
Mhm.
if you receive text messages as well, they do these and they fish. I get them constantly from people claiming to be from different banks, and some are actually my bank. And I always
Mhm.
have to pause, kind of take a look at it. leave it alone and actually go directly to the website if I have questions.
Because I know lately I've been getting so many text messages that are, oh, your Netflix account is suspended, or we're going to suspend your Amazon account, or whatever, or FedEx needs to reach you. And I noticed that on an iPhone now, you can actually swipe it to delete it, but actually even report it as a scam. So that's one little,
but we still get
I
them
know,
all
but
the
then they
time.
just come from a different number.
Yeah.
So, okay. So those are helpful. That's helpful for, red flag, don't answer, don't give out personal information if somebody calls you, and verify it by a third, like the third party, if you will, or calling that entity back.
And so many times we hear about someone calling, whether it's someone our age or our parents' age, calling and asking questions. And I've got your birthday here. What is it again? Oh yeah, and you give it out, and now they have that information. And where did you used to live? Oh yeah, now we have. Oh, and then you have that information. So be careful answering the questions that they give to you.
Even when they might seem not as, it's not a bank account, right?
Yeah.
But it's still personal information.
And that personal information can be used to verify your identity. We all have those security questions, and they are common for most of us.
Yes.
A lot of people overshare information on social media. I can't tell you enough. Don't overshare your information, specifically on Facebook. Things like your car, your first car, your pet's name. Those are your security prompts on a lot of, your personal information. So really hold those tight and be cautious. And on your cell phone, you brought up a good point when we get those calls or kind of the phishing. One thing you can do on most smartphones is go into your phone settings and actually silence unknown callers. It's a great feature on most smartphones. You can check it out. It'll send them directly to voicemail. And if they need to get a hold of you, they'll leave a detailed message and you can call them back.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And that might be something to go in and help our parents. Hey, mom and dad, I want to set this up for you so that you don't get all of those annoying calls.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes I guess when it's your dentist, it may not be in your caller ID,
but they'll leave a message.
So then they'll leave a message. So
exactly. And a lot of people at home, you're retired, you're hanging out, and people call you and you might be bored. You want to talk. I love to talk. Who doesn't? And so you're curious and you want to answer all those phone calls that come in. But at least if you can deter them to voicemail, you can really weed out what's important and what's not, and really save your valuable time.
Yeah. Great tip. Great tip.
There are a bunch of romantic scams out there. Tell us about those.
Well, as social media connects us to our friends and family, scammers also use it as a great tool to take advantage and get money or personal information. Specifically with Facebook, you'll see people come into your instant messages. They like to start those romantic relationships. And maybe you are, someone that is young, older, it really doesn't matter. They're going to come in, really take their time to get to know you, and you feel like you have a connection. But it always comes, they always need something. There's a crisis, there's a sense of urgency, and they need money. Yeah. A lot of people that get involved in these romantic scams, no matter what your age is, you get embarrassed once you figure out what's going on. And sometimes you just don't see it. So you just want to take your time and make sure, ask some people, hey, do you think this is legitimate? And if they tell you no, you might want to listen.
And what are things that we should be listening for when we're talking to our parents about maybe picking up on some of these things?
Well, specifically, if they've met someone and they're overseas, they're in the military, they're a doctor, they're doing some type of humanitarian work, they've made plans to come out and visit them several times, but something always happens and they need money to help a friend or family member. So it might seem legitimate because the person is actually talking to them on the phone. They can use different types of voice recognition and they sound great, but they will never, ever, generally, I say never, ever, generally, video chat with someone. There'll be something wrong with their camera. It'll be fuzzy. They'll keep kind of this going on just to really bait and hook. So they're very believable. This is what they do for a living. So you have to realize that people take it very personal, but they have several people that are on the hook and they're just trying to make a living.
Well, and that's what I've really tried to really emphasize with my mom is that these people who are out there taking advantage of people, they're really good. They're very savvy and they know what to ask and what buttons to push, if you will, to get somebody's attention. So I've tried to really help her see that if you see something concerning, please tell me. Don't be embarrassed, because I think that I'm afraid that if my mom has been scammed a couple of times with the generosity type.
Yes,
helping some people. Yeah, we'll get to that one. But I think that at first, if I had said, "Oh my gosh, mom, what were you thinking? That was dumb," kind of reaction, which in my head, I was absolutely thinking.
And you say it every once in a while.
Well, I might but I try not to because I don't want, I want her to be able to feel comfortable telling me when it's about to happen, because then maybe I can step in and we can diffuse that situation before she has lost money And sometimes it's a little bit of your dignity. I mean, you're so humiliated by when something like that
I can't believe that
happens.
happened to me. I can't believe I fell for that.
Right. And I think I would think it's having that open dialogue with your parent or your spouse, if you're not sure either, but that open dialogue to really help them see that, they're sneaky, and that's why it's easy to fall for something, because they're really good at what they do.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that you cannot take people for face value, like our parents could. My grandmother answered the door every single day. Anybody came over, she would talk to anybody, welcome them in her home, very trusting. That was just a different time. And it's so unfortunate that we have to be on guard, make sure our parents and our grandparents are on guard and know these things to look for. And like you mentioned, the embarrassment, there is nothing to be embarrassed about. This happens to everyone and can happen to everyone. So we want to make sure that we get the educational pieces out there and people report it. I know we'll get to talking about reporting tools in a bit.
Yeah. So let's go back to kind of the generosity scams, if you will. In our situation, it was, hey, can you go buy these gift cards? I'll give you the money, but they really just transferred money from her savings account to her checking account. So it was really just her own money. So that she thought she had been reimbursed. And then, if you can go buy some gift cards for us and then give us all the codes, that would be super helpful. So the gift card scheme, I think, is one that's been floating around for a while. What are some other ones that might be that situation?
Well, the gift card scam, like you just mentioned, that's number one. They like Apple, the iTunes gift cards, anything of that nature, and also wiring money. They want things that are untraceable. So they don't want to have any type of connection really to your personal account that can go back. Yeah. So when you are looking at gift cards, for example, we tell people when you're at the store, you're going to buy them, turn them over, look on the back. If someone ever asks you to scratch off that number and read it to them over the phone, you really want to take a pause. That's the only way you can gather money for those when you actually go to the checkout. So a lot of great local pharmacies, grocery stores are monitoring those at checkout. They're checking those numbers on the back. And if they notice people are coming in and buying a ton of gift cards at one time, a lot of great people are out there questioning them and saying, hey, I think you might be going to fall victim to a scam here.
I know that I was actually involved with Project Graduation several years ago, and we were buying gift cards for the kids as a prize or as a raffle at the end. And it was very interesting because they were very it was actually Best Buy. Sorry, they actually were very careful about saying you can only buy X amount at a time because of that very reason. And in this case, we really did need to buy that many for so many kids, but I liked the fact that they were paying attention, and you had to get a manager involved if you were buying more than like 10 at a time or something like that. So good that some stores are being mindful and being aware, so that hopefully we can prevent some of those as well. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and then of course, email is just always the clicking on those links, right?
Yeah. I've taught my dad for years not to click on them, and he's been great. And then a couple of weeks ago, he clicked, and all kinds of things happened where he got a full screen that said to call the number. He called the number. He wound up telling too much, and he got scammed. And you've just, like what you said before about pausing, calling someone before you do anything, calling, whether it's your son or your daughter or a relative or a good friend, find somebody to bounce this off of you. Do you think this is true? What should I do? And that's what I think a lot of people, whether you're old or not, that's what you need to learn how to do.
Yeah, exactly. And before you could really see or kind of decipher in those emails, you could look and say, okay, I'm going through this email. Man, there's a lot of gross misspellings, wording's not making sense. It just doesn't look right. Now they look almost identical to really national websites. They've gotten great at mimicking those. So it's not as easy to detect as it may have used to be. So you really want to look at the links that it's sent from. You can hover over those links as well. You might notice some foreign language, some other misspellings that might not be a certain website, but it's a little bit of a deterrent. So those links in there, you get something that says it's from your bank, never click on them, go directly to your bank's website or call the number on the back of your card.
Well, and I've really tried to work with my mom too, to help her see that you can make it say that it's from AT&T, but usually with the email address, you can see that it's, a.t.t, or something weird where they've changed the domain just slightly enough that it's not really the company, or it's a weird gibberish with a Gmail address. And I'm like, Mom, the antivirus software is not going to email you from a Gmail address, So, but again, it's just, we want to be trusting, and you can make that say, who it actually is from. You can make it say it's from Santa Claus if you wanted to,
Exactly.
you can adjust that. But I think, again, that's with the technology, it's just hard to sometimes to see that.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier about know what's going on. I think that the best thing is you don't have to ask your neighbors, hey, have you heard about any scams lately? Because you've got the scam tracker to be able to figure out what's going on in your area. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Scam Tracker is great. It's an interactive tool on our website. You can go to it, you can view all the scams that are happening in the US, Canada, and Mexico in real time. So, depending on what area you live in, you can actually pinpoint to your location and
Mm.
see what's happening. I think this is a great tool for everybody to go in and look and to warn our friends and family of what's going on. And if someone has approached you, even if you haven't given them money, go ahead and fill it out. It takes about 30 seconds to capture that information,
Mhm.
and it is very helpful. So if you are a little bit, kind of unsure, not want to reach out to your kids and let them know what happened, you can go onto Scam Tracker and be proactive and look and say, oh man, this is happening. This person is calling, or this type of scam is really trending in my area. And you can also let your friends and family know. So it's a great way to get the information out.
And that is just on the Better Business Bureau website.
Yes, it's at bbb.org/scam tracker.
So a great way to be able to find out what's going on, as well as notify or add it to the list if there's something that you've experienced that you want to let other people know about as well.
Yeah, and it's a great tool for our media. Our media as well. They go on there and they look and they'll actually do the stories or investigations based on a lot of information that we get. Because the only way to prevent scams is to keep putting the information out. As people that are scamming, they go in there and they refine their skills and they shift them. As soon as we really get onto one scam, we make the information out, they're onto something completely
right.
different, right? So we have to keep talking about it to help stop them.
Yes.
All right. Well, hopefully this will help.
Yeah. Heather, some great tips. Thank you so much. I think you've helped a lot of people with this.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is you've got to know that there's always something new coming out. So be
Right.
ready for anything. And
Right.
being able to look at that scam tracker and seeing what's going on so you can alert mom and dad
Mhm.
about, hey, be careful about this.
Mhm.
Watch out for that.
Mhm.
It's going to help tremendously.
And really just starts that conversation with your parents as well, so that they can be on the lookout and also hopefully be more willing to share if they see some of those, so that you can prevent those scams from happening before they happen.
Yeah. Hey, if you have any topics you'd like us to discuss, please let us know. Parenting aging parents.